everybody. For this video, I would like to go over a little bit more of a psychological event, more so than any disorder, and it is known as gaslighting. Gaslighting is a specific type of manipulation tactic that can be used against people by an individual who has certain intentions, and I'm going to be going over some signs of it and how it leaves that person after they have gone through it, for whether it be an acute amount of time or a straight through long period amount of time. So gaslighting is defined by being a form of psychological manipulation where the person or group covertly sows seeds of doubt into the targeted individual or group's mind. And because they're intentionally doing this or manipulating these individuals or the specific person, it makes them question their memory, their perception, their judgment. And because of that, it often invokes in them some sort of cognitive dissonance and other changes, including low self-esteem. So what happens with gaslighting is the fact that a specific person will do this to another individual. And this individual will get affected in a way where they start questioning their own reality. They start questioning their intentions, their motives, their goals, their interests, because that person has used that against them. Some signs of gaslighting is that the individual will tell blatant lies. Like, you'll just be lie after lie after lie after lie. And they'll say it with a straight face. They won't even flinch at it. They won't even show any remorse for it. They deny they ever said that too, even though you have proof. So if there's a specific occurrence where you have been blatantly lied to, and you have like proof, like, wait a minute, you're lying because look at this. And that person's like, no, I never did that. I never did that. No, I never did that. And it's to the extent that they'll even do this and they'll somehow confuse the situation. Be like, no, I didn't mean it that way, or whatever it may be. They also use what is near and dear to you as ammunition. So while they do these lies or while they do their manipulation tactics, they use things that you care about as a sort of bait system in order to get you into the state of mind that they want you to be in, or they'll use what's near and dear to you to even hurt you. They'll either use it as bait, or they'll use it in the sense where they will use that to hurt you, like, oh, well, so-and-so, like, let's say it's a person that you really care about or whose opinion you really take and value. All of a sudden they'll say, well, they think bad about you, or, well, they were hanging out with this person that you don't like, or they'll do something like that to hurt you, or they'll say, oh, well, this specific hobby is this and this and this and this, and it'll make you feel bad about yourself because those are things that you take into account as part of your identity, and those are things that you value in your life and things that you cherish and have passion for or have close relationships with, whatever it may be, whether it be an object, an idea, an activity, or a person. They'll use what's near and dear to you against you as ammunition to either put you down or to lure you in, depending on what direction it goes in. They wear you down over time, so they will cause a person to feel drained after so much time, and this person will not only be worn down psychologically, they'll be worn down emotionally, they'll be worn down to the essence of their self-esteem starts just decreasing so much, and they feel lethargic. They can feel physically tired of dealing with people like this after such a prolonged period of time because it affects them that badly. Their actions do not match their words. Also, a lot of people who make false promises are known as gaslighters, and if it's constantly consistent through it, they may be sweet through words, through text, maybe even through social media. If you were to put that factor in there, they'll be very nice on paper, so to speak, to you, or more so with a message or a post with a caption. But then when you are with that person, when you're face to face with that individual, it's like you're dealing with a whole different person. All of a sudden, like, the sweetness isn't really matching up to their actions. They'll give you sweet nothings basically, and then you'll be there physically in front of them and they'll be very cold, they'll be very passive, they won't match up to the way they act usually. Or if they act supportive through text, through a comment where other people can see typically, but they don't act like that towards you as an individual when it's not showcased anywhere, they're gaslighting you. That's a big sign that they're gaslighting you. They also throw positive reinforcement to confuse you. So a thing that gaslighters can do to the person being gaslit is that they'll start questioning if they're insane. They'll start questioning their own sanity level because they'll feel like they're not normal. They feel like, oh wait, maybe I'm over exaggerating, or maybe it's not that bad because look, oh wait, they brought me a gift, or they were nice to me today. Wow, this was a very rare occurrence where they were actually nice and respectful to me. And you're like, oh, okay, so that does happen. It's just sometimes bad days. Like it goes from them being bad all the time to all of a sudden it kind of warps and confuses a person because the positive reinforcement throws everything off focus. All of a sudden the positive reinforcement seems more like you caught them on a good day and they've just been having a lot of bad days, when the case is that if people are truly conscious of how they're acting and they're truly intentional and they want to be purposeful to the people around them and they care about the people around them, they don't necessarily allow those people to be in the crossfires of them. They won't need to give positive reinforcement because they're not doing it in a reinforcing manner. They're giving those positive gestures, those kind words, those kind actions intentionally and effortlessly. It won't all of a sudden be like, oh, you did good, wow, like I'm surprised, or you know what, yeah, I do care about you, or all of a sudden they'll listen to you intently for one time, or they'll give you props or something and all of a sudden leave you a lengthy message and you'll feel like, like, okay, so they do care about me. But then at the same time, it's like if you have to really look at the big picture and not just at that gesture. You have to really step outside and look at the whole thing and be like, wait a minute, like, it's not consistent. That's the purpose. That's the main point here. It's not consistent. It's very convenient, or typically when they mess up to an extent that it's a little more obvious, if that makes sense. And because of that, because they're confusing the individual, they know it weakens people. They know it weakens the individual they're gaslighting. So they know what they're doing. They're trying to give that positive reinforcement or those breadcrumbs to keep the person around. Like, it's just enough to keep them around because that person's going to want to seek more of that good behavior, when in reality they're just throwing in little sprinkles to keep that person hooked in, if that makes sense. So they use that confusion as a tactic. They're very well aware of what they're doing. They also project. So when people do projection, it typically means that if they're experiencing an emotion, if they're acting withdrawn, or if they're acting cold, for example, those are typically the main issues with a gaslighting individual. They'll project it onto you. They'll make you seem like you're the one acting cold. Oh no, you're acting distant. You're doing this. Oh no, you're crazy. You're over exaggerating. No, I'm not mad. You're mad. Like, they'll do that. They'll make you think that it's you, and they'll project their issues onto you. They'll project a lot of other things that are bothering them onto you. So they'll be irritable, and then they'll be like, oh no, you're the one acting irritable. I'm not acting irritable. I'm reacting to you. When you know damn well that they're the ones doing that primary action, and you are responding to it and you're questioning them on it. You're trying to call them out on it and observe it. They'll be projecting it onto you. They'll project their insecurities onto you. They'll project their feelings onto you. Like, they'll make it seem like it's you, or they'll project that suspicion or confrontation onto you. And that's another big tactic that gaslighters do. They also try to align people against you. Once again, I go back to that because they'll use what's near and dear to you as ammunition. So they will typically try to get other people to look at you the way they want you to be viewed as. They'll try to get people to look at you as that sensitive person, that overreactor, that person who has too many feelings, who cares too much. They'll do that to that individual, and that's not fair because of the fact that they're isolating this person little by little by making the people near and dear to them go against them as well. They'll tell their side of the story, what they want them to hear, and they know what the sides of the story entail, but they'll still do that just so that way you look like you're the irrational one, and that's very manipulative. And again, they will just tell other people that you're the one that's acting crazy, like, oh no, they're acting crazy, I don't know what it is, blah 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 blah. But realistically, that person does have valid emotions, they have valid thoughts, they have valid feelings that they need to discuss. but the person is just trying to make it seem like they're crazy, so that way they don't necessarily get that support that they need from other people who are willing to listen and who are willing to not be dismissive of their feelings or emotions or thoughts. They'll just do that just to shut them out and keep them in their corner, keep them isolated from ever achieving what it is that they need, that support and comfort, because people do need support and comfort. They don't need to be dismissed or minimized when they are trying to open up. They also tell you everyone else is a liar. So for example, if you are like, it goes back to that first point, if they are a blatant liar or they constantly tell blatant lies, they'll be like, okay, like let's say the proof lies in the fact that there are other witnesses around you. All of a sudden, oh no, that person's lying, they're doing this, they're doing that. And it also kind of ties into projecting. They'll try to project something else onto other people so that they look like if their hands are clean, when realistically they're the ones that are just trying to pin it on other people so the focus stays off of them. Now, some other signs is that it can lead, like, we know what they do, but how can it leave the individual being gaslit to feel? It'll make them question themselves. Like, you'll question yourself. You'll feel incapable of making any decisions or choices. You'll feel like you struggle with decision making because you question whether your opinions, your thoughts, your feelings are true, whether they will lead you to what you need to do, whether they'll lead you to the right path or anything like that, because of the fact that these people have used that gaslighting technique on you so long that you start questioning yourself. You start feeling like, since they're controlling your life so much, you start feeling like, oh my goodness, like, am I gonna make the right decision because this person told me this the other day, or this person made me question this the other day? But what if they're right? But realistically, it's the fact that they're trying to use it so heavily upon you, and you start questioning yourself to that extent. It diminishes the way you feel about yourself. You'll also wonder if you're too sensitive. You'll often be like, am I being too sensitive for reacting this way to somebody who's being mean? Like, there are going to be mean people out there, and while we need to have our own coping mechanisms to kind of give ourselves some sort of shields around those people, it is very valid for a person to feel hurt by someone else's actions, because there are people that no matter how much patience and compassion you approach them with, or neutral attitude you'll approach them with, there's still some pretty mean people out there. And when your feelings are hurt, or when you have a need that needs to be met or something, you'll start thinking you're too sensitive for feeling hurt when that person is realistically mean. Even if it's a person gaslighting you, you'll start wondering if you're too sensitive to what they're doing to you. You're like, oh no, I'm being too sensitive because they start making you think you're crazy. And that's not fair, because you're not too sensitive if you're expressing yourself. That isn't the thing. The fact that the person's making you feel like you are is the problem. You think you deserve to be alone. So because this person feels so dissociated from the reality, because they feel so dismissed and they feel like they're too sensitive, and they question their own decision making, they question their own integrity, they'll feel like they're better off alone. They better off be away from other people, because a gaslighter will make them feel like they're a burden. Their needs, their feelings are a burden. So therefore they'll feel like they need to be alone in order to not bother anybody, or in order to like not have to make others deal with what they're feeling, when realistically, like, it's better for them to be with trusted people. But a gaslighting person will make them feel like they're better off alone and more isolated. The person will be like, you'll be unhappy for no reason. Like, there are different circumstances and situations that can lead up to that, and of course other underlying psychological issues or mental health struggles that a person may have that can coincide and conclude their unhappiness. But if this person, if you or somebody who's being gaslit is all of a sudden very unhappy for no reason that can be pinpointed, and all of the other things add up with gaslighting, then you are a victim of gaslighting. All routes point to that. You create excuses for them. So if you find yourself trying to justify them because of the fact that this person gaslights you, so they have that positive reinforcement, and then boom, they're dismissive with you. Positive reinforcement, they make you think you're crazy. Positive reinforcement, confusion. They make you feel like if their decision making is better, their perception of everything is better than what you are actually feeling. They're trying to tell you how you feel. You'll start making excuses for them. You'll start justifying how mean they are. If someone outside of your situation can recognize it, you start being, no, well, maybe they had a bad day, or you know what, no, I was being too sensitive. Then you're just making excuses for their behavior when the fact is they're gaslighting you, and you don't have to excuse that behavior. You can't stop apologizing. If you find yourself saying sorry over and over and over and over again because this person is very unpredictable, it makes you feel bad for requesting things or for talking or for just being. Like, if you didn't intentionally do anything wrong to them, if you know that it's nothing wrong, it's just simply you having what should be a normal human interaction, but that person doesn't make you feel like it's a normal human reaction, and you're apologizing for that, or you're apologizing for the outcome of the situation, and you can't stop apologizing to them every time you say, think, or do something that wouldn't really necessarily lead to that universal apology level, then you're being gaslit. You think everything you do is wrong. You constantly think that you're making the wrong decision, you're doing the wrong action, you're saying the wrong thing, and because this person makes you feel so invalid, they make everything you think or feel seem invalid. So you start thinking that you're doing everything wrong, and then you start apologizing because you think you're doing everything wrong. You feel submissive and insecure and afraid, like you're walking on eggshells around that person. And another thing is that you'll think you aren't good enough. All of that is going to start creating a low self-esteem in you. You're going to start thinking of yourself less. You're going to start thinking you're not good enough because of the way that person makes you feel. That person makes you feel like what you achieve isn't good enough. Your interests aren't good enough. Your interests aren't interesting enough to talk about. They'll start making you feel beat down, and you'll start wondering if you're good enough, and you'll start thinking so low about yourself. You'll start second guessing your conversations because you can't talk about the things you are passionate about with these people because they minimize your interests. They minimize the fact that you have a right to have your passions too, not just them, or they can't always steer the conversation. Some red flags, which a lot of these are going to overlap, and you're going to see how a lot of these go together. But I wanted to kind of subcategorize this into red flags. So these are a little bit more putting it into situations. So you apologize without knowing what you did wrong. Like, all of a sudden you're basing yourself off of their reaction. Like they give you like this like dissatisfaction, or they start acting cold, or all of a sudden you just get that scoff, or like the like kind of like reaction, or like you feel like you did something wrong because they all of a sudden shut down, or their emotion went from here to here. Then you start apologizing and you're like, what did I do wrong? Like, wait a minute, like did I actually, oh my god, did I actually do something wrong to you? And you're questioning, you're like, why is this person upset at me right now? That is a red flag. There's an imbalance of power. So there is a very evident submissive and dominant thing going on there. You are submissive to this person who calls all the shots, who steers the wheel and doesn't allow you to have your input or allow you to have your voice or your opinion. You'll all of a sudden feel like you're powerless, like you're hopeless in the situation, like you have no say, so you just have to kind of go with what they want, when realistically, like, it takes two. It takes compromises sometimes. Oftentimes there's an agreement, there's commonalities, but it just completely goes out the window, and you have to go with what this person wants. They give you affection, then abruptly yank it away. So that is a positive reinforcement tactic. If this person is acting cold with you, and it makes you feel low about yourself, and it makes you question what you did wrong to them, for example, then all of a sudden give you affection, and it'll be sweet to you, and you know that that's not something that they typically do, and then that's that positive reinforcement, and then all of a sudden they like take it away, and like, never mind, and you're like, what? Like, what did I say? What did I do? What happened? Like, did the freaking earth shift? Like, what happened? They just yank it away, and you feel like you have to work hard for it, and therefore you start agreeing with everything they want. You start bending over backwards for what they want, to see if you can get that positive reinforcement again, to see if you can get a glimmer of that affection again. It causes the person to have to please this individual in order to like get the relationship or the interaction they need. They assign motives to your actions. that are the opposite of your intentions. So another very interesting way that they can do that is that the fact that you'll intentionally be doing something good for them, and you know it's something good for them. You're trying to do a favor or surprise them with something, or maybe it might not even be obviously beneficial, but you know where your intention lies. You're trying to do something good for the person, or you're trying to do something good in regards to that person, whether it be in an event maybe. And this person all of a sudden is like, oh, you did the surprise party just to catch me off guard and embarrass me, didn't you? And they're like, no, I did a surprise party for you because it's your birthday. I'm celebrating your birthday for you. And they're like, no, 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 you did it to embarrass me and catch me off guard. Now I'm embarrassed. I was caught off guard and I wasn't expecting this. I wasn't ready for it. And it's like, what? Like, I'm sorry, that's not my intention. I intended to surprise you. Like, that's an example of that. And that's, like, I think a really good example to get the idea of it. Most interactions leave you feeling small or ashamed. Again, there's that imbalance of power, so you feel very small. And you feel ashamed also, like in a circumstance where you're expressing yourself or you're talking about your passions. You're talking about your passions because you're a human and you have a right to have passion. But this person is like, all of a sudden you leave the interaction, you're like, oh, was I talking too much? Was I talking about this topic too much because they thought it was stupid, or they thought it was silly, or whatever other dismissive term that they use to put you down and put your interest down. You feel ashamed for opening up. You feel ashamed for being able to try to express yourself a little bit. All of a sudden you feel like you shouldn't have opened up. You're like, oh wow, like this person made me feel very like wrong for doing that. That's how the interaction will leave you feeling. With a situation, they insist that a situation wouldn't happen that way. So that's how they can manipulate your memory and your perception. You'll tell a story and all of a sudden be like, no, that never happened. I never did that to you. I never did that to you. What are you talking about? And you're like, no, I was there. You did do that to me. No, I didn't. You must be confusing it. You must be confusing that. I never did that to you. And you're like, what? Like, there were 2 witnesses there. And you honestly remember it that way. But they'll try to make it seem like if your memory is faulty, because they're trying to unload the guilt that they have, given the circumstance. If your beliefs and opinions don't match theirs, they make you feel like it's wrong. So, we all have our individuality. We have the ability to disagree. We have the ability to agree. We have the ability to all have different interests and learn from each other's interests. But if it's not their agenda or their tiny scope of ideas and concepts and interests, they'll make you feel like it's completely unworthy of talking about. So if someone likes horror movies and they want to talk about that, they like to, because it's an interaction, it's a 2-way street. You talk about things that you share, you talk about things that you witnessed, you saw, you experienced, you like. The person does that too, but all of a sudden you're talking about your thing and they're like, whatever, and they're like, that's lame, whatever, they're making fun of it. And then you're like, what? Like, you went on and on and on about this category of movies that you like, this specific character you like about a lot of things, and I was willing to listen to you because I care about you. And then all of a sudden you talk about a specific genre of movies that you like, and this person just doesn't want to hear it, or doesn't want to watch it, or doesn't even want to give it a little bit of listening. That's wrong. That's gaslighting. It's a big time gaslighting factor. When you try to explain how you feel, they're dismissive. So let's say it's someone that you trust. It's someone that you want to confide in. Okay? It's a situation outside of them, but they go to you for support, because that's the thing that we can do as human beings, is we can rely on each other. We're social creatures by nature, and we have a group of trusted people that we can go to. So if this person goes to talk about how they feel, even whether it be 100% right, 50% right, 25% right, 75% right, or it's a gray area where both people are right, but you're close to this person, they're close to you, and they call you to talk about how they're feeling, or they express how they're feeling, then all of a sudden they try to dismiss it completely. Like, while you may have your opinions, everyone is entitled to their opinion, of course, but when it comes to showing up for people, you have to show up for them. Like, that's the most compassionate thing you can do, is show up for somebody and just listen. Sometimes people just need someone to listen to them and be there for them, and that's all you need. But all of a sudden they dismiss how you're feeling. They dismiss that you're feeling sad. You're trying to open up that you're feeling sad, or you're feeling frustrated, or you're feeling hurt by somebody, and they're being dismissive of your feelings, and they're just trying to justify the other person that's hurting you. They're trying to blame it on you all of a sudden, like, well, why are you feeling that way? And it's like, well, while you need to dig deep into that, I think that's up to the individual to do for themselves introspectively. But while this person is trying to vent, it's okay to help, it's okay to give advice if it's allotted. But if you start dismissing this person constantly, and you're not letting them express themselves, and you're just like constantly questioning what their feelings are before even really like giving them that space, you know what I mean, that respective space and the respective bubble for them to express themselves, that's gaslighting. Because you're not taking into regard that this person is feeling the way they're feeling. And you may have your opinions, you may have like your little ideas that line up to that certain point, or they may have other experiences that cause that certain reaction, or we don't know everything about everybody. That is a fact. We don't know how that person feels because we weren't there. And even if you are there, you only have a certain glimpse of it. You're not inside the person's perception. You're not inside the person's body and mind and soul, observing the situation or going through the situation. So when someone is dismissive towards it and they don't want to hear how they feel, or they're trying to make them feel this small about feeling how they feel, and they're looking at it to not just as an outsider, but they're looking at it to where the person who is pouring their heart out is all of a sudden like dismissed, then that's gaslighting, because you're not taking into regard that this person, it takes a lot for a person to approach someone else when they need just some support, or when they need to open up about somebody and be vulnerable. But if they're dismissive, that's gaslighting, and that's not a good tactic, because that person will feel like their feelings are never valid. They'll start questioning themselves, and they'll start numbing themselves. They'll start making themselves smaller just to not bother anybody with their own feelings and thoughts, when that's not good, because this person will be bottling it all up inside, and it could have, all it needed was attentive listening. All it needed was just to be a supportive presence in that person's life. So this is what gaslighting is. Gaslighting has many different shapes and forms. It has a huge range of situations that it can appear in, and it may be in a romantic relationship, in family, in friends and coworkers, in professional settings, in just acquaintances, neighbors, whatever it may be. Gaslighting takes on many shapes and forms, and it occurs when an individual manipulates the other person or dismisses the other person to a point where they start doubting themselves. They start doubting their own thoughts, their feelings, their own reality, and their own value and their voice. So it's important to recognize these signs. If you're watching this video, you may already be someone who suspects that they're in a situation where they're being gaslit, or maybe you may even recognize that you are a person who has used gaslighting on someone else. And with this, I hope this can make people a little bit more conscious of how they show up and interact with other people, no matter how close or distant they may be from them. I hope that this brings some sort of awareness and a little bit of mindfulness into how we interact and show up for other people, because it is important for us to show up for each other and be compassionate in that process, because we are each human beings who have our own feelings, our own thoughts, and we need to make sure that we make each other feel safe in this. We need to make sure that we make each other feel safe in this world, because as it is, there's a lot of things out there that happen that are out of our control. There are situations out there that are very drastic in the world, and it's important for us to at least make that safe space happen, and it starts with each other as individuals. So I hope this video has been helpful, whether it be for you or for someone you know that may be going through this. I hope this video finds you well, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Have a good mental health day. Thank you for watching.